Hello everybody, welcome to Raising Vibrations, and you're with Simon today. And in this video we're going to be exploring the new moon in Pisces and talking about some exciting things that are happening in the astrology world and how this is going to essentially be playing out for us in years to come. And that is the Uranus's movement into Taurus again. So as always, I think this is a great opportunity to deepen the experience of understanding why we use astrology as a tool in our experience, and maybe to contribute to the community of those of us that are deeply seeking, So hopefully today there's going to be something that's of deep value to all of you. All right. So the new moon in Pisces is happening actually on the 6th of March. And today's the 7th, so we're just out of that cycle right now. The moon's in Aries right now. Well, it's going to be in Aries. And I love this picture, right? The picture really speaks to me a lot about the nature of what we can do to embody the essence of this energy that's moving through us right now. And again, this is, my point of view, my perspective, my vision of it. And to me, it really speaks to this part of ourselves that on some level right now, at this point in time, at some level in our personal individual experience right now, wants to step into a deeper connection to the soul, a deeper connection to the self, a deeper connection to the meaning of living a life of truth and real authentic expression. And that story, that experience might not necessarily come across as very clear, or might come across as experiences of uncomfortability. And sometimes those experiences are also deeply rigid. And that we're always finding ourselves, again, moving through cycles within ourselves that are never ever going to be just smooth sailing. And that's why I love this picture so much, because again, in the previous video that I'd spoken about, I used a mountain range as well. And in this picture, I'm kind of bringing it in again, but the main sort of connection that I like with this chart is the essence, or breathing into what it feels like to be in that arena, what it feels like to be potentially on a boat staring out at the lake, in where you can clearly see that Earth has gone through some really tough changes within its own archaeological foundation. You can see that the rocks represent stresses. You can see where there are certain paths that have been experienced where water has eroded. And at the same time, you can also feel and connect to the essence of the stillness that exists within this lake. The trees represent to me this part, or this reflection of life always being in a constant state of changing its colors, right? So in this case, you can see that this is an autumn experience, or maybe even a autumn, I would say. Right, because if it was winter, the trees wouldn't have leaves on it. Not necessarily, but you get the point I'm trying to make. So this is where I feel we are, okay? And with Uranus entering Taurus, and Taurus being an earth sign, we need to be aware and awake to the fact that the deepest caverns within our own psychological and emotional framework are going to be shaken up, right? And what is going to exist within that framework, or within what is going to be shaken up, is our own pre-existing fears, our own pre-existing attachments to what has held security and stability with us in the past. And Uranus will bring to us awarenesses and experiences that will leave us acknowledging that whatever it was that we've just come to understand, we can no longer look back at and pretend it's not real. And this is one of the reasons why Uranus can be such a difficult archetype to integrate within your consciousness and in your psyche, wherever it sits in the chart. because it's not an archetypal vibration or an energy form that, just exists and then you can pretend it's not there. It's wherever it sits in your chart, it's pointing to an aspect of yourself that is awakening at rates faster than what the current reality is presenting to you. And so to integrate what those insights are can be sometimes super difficult. But ultimately, at the end of the day, it's wanting to return you back to your own soul essence, your own individuation process. Pisces also, to me, as I kind of change lanes over here, and the moon at the moment, this new moon that's happening in Pisces, this imagery points to the experience of contemplation. And when I was, digesting the meaning of this new moon with Jen, she was pointing to the importance of how contemplation during this time is the essence of how we can actually grow through this new moon cycle. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to, move us over to the actual chart itself, and then from there point out to you why I feel and we feel that these, this type of behavior is necessary at this point in time. So let's go over to the chart. So let's have a look at the chart first. I know that there's this beautiful imagery that you want to pay attention to, but let's just look at the chart first. Here we have the new moon happening at 15 degrees Pisces, right? And it's actually conjunct Neptune at the moment, right? So you have a new moon, sun moon, and Neptune connected together. Now, it's very clear to me that this sun-moon contact on a transpersonal planet, and it's really important, guys, like if you generally want to actually, respect your own personal time of spending here watching this video and trying to digest what I'm talking about, then the way I'm going to express these symbols are very important, because I'm trying to push away from this mental amplification of just words that astrology has become versus the essence of what it feels like and the meaning in your life, so that you can actually go back into your own life and see where these things are changing for you, can see your own evolution occurring and the collective evolution. So when we see this sun-moon contact here, we can immediately recognize that there's something around, there's a need for illumination. There's a pointing to something that is very apparent within us, that is needing to be witnessed, right? The sun, moon are luminaries. So the universe is pointing to an area and saying, hey, by the way, this is a big focus here, right? And this is hugely part of this new moon cycle. Remember that this is going to take the whole entire month for the moon to go all the way around the chart until eventually it comes back to this point over here and makes a new moon conjunction in Aries. So the significance of this moon contacting Neptune is big, because when you look at the relationship that Neptune has to Jupiter, right, you can see there with my cursor. In fact, what I can actually do for us is just get a red marker, and maybe that will help us a lot. There we go. Can you see the red marker? Okay, so there's Jupiter, and he's sitting at 22 degrees Sagittarius, and he's been moving through Sagittarius since last year, super fast. And Jupiter in Sagittarius in its home sign has really been pushing us to explore deeper understandings of our own personal truth, right? So your own vision of life, the way that you construct reality from your own lens. Jupiter is moving through that and asking yourself the question, do you feel that what you believe is true, right? So it's asking this question, do you feel what you believe is true? And with its square that it's taking place to Neptune in this imagery over here, in this archetype, is about eroding. Okay, Neptune is the archetype of decay that eventually leads to the process of where something no longer is in its original form. And then when the original form, so let's say for instance like a tree, when a tree falls, right, Pluto, elimination of its life, when the tree falls and it essentially exists within the on the floor, right, on the ground, it can take up to, say, let's say 30 years for it to progressively decay, and it becomes an ecosystem for a new home for plants and animals, and, or not animals, but insects and stuff like that. It is the process of something that is decaying over time that eventually will return back to the soil, right? To oneness, to the place of non-dualism. So Neptune over here, as it makes a contact to Jupiter, is pointing to, at this point in time, a progressive decaying of certain cosmological beliefs and ideologies and perspectives and illusions and fantasies that we, hold within ourselves relative to pre-existing experiences, relative to pre-existing experiences that we've had in our lives that shaped the way that we perceive reality. Okay? And the sun and the moon, as it sits over here, right? The little cursor has obviously stopped moving right now, but the sun and the moon over there is pointing to an illumination of this. It's saying, hey, by the way, this is a focus point on this new moon. And you'll look in your life and you'll see how you've been shaped by experiences and what certain belief systems you hold about yourself that are in this point in time progressively actually are in a state of change, in a state of dissolving and returning back to the origins, right? Your psychology and like I said, so disillusionment around certain beliefs. And the way that you can actually embody this energy within inside of yourself right now is embracing certain ideologies or beliefs that you run subconsciously in the back of your mind that says, hey, like I was told at the age of 5 years old and 6 years old and 7 years old by a parent that I wasn't good. And so when you get to the age of 25, 26, and you want to, take on this new job that is going to be deeply empowering to you, the back of this belief system that's running there subtly says, oh, I'll fail, or what happens if I fail? I don't want to be shouted at, as an example. I don't want to feel that shame, as an example. And these subconscious beliefs and frameworks that exist within the overall structure of your psyche and your perception of reality is eroding. And we have this opportunity to really tap into the mind stream of certain cosmological truths that we hold. When we come back to a more conceptualized idea of Neptune within our energy field, right? When I talk about the energy field, I'm talking about the presence of your physical being and the sensations that you have about your presence, okay? And within those subtle sensations, there are certain memory fields that exist within inside of yourself, core memories. Neptune is that stream of awareness that you can, and most of us don't really get to access the Neptunian field in consistent sort of awakening states because it's deeply overwhelming to the ego. Okay, in fact, most of the time when we kind of touch the Neptunian field or the Neptunian sensations within inside of ourselves, the ego freaks out because it's so vast that the space that it consumes the ego in loses its sense of identity. And so in that moment we begin to don't identify with anything because it's in its non-dualistic state. So this Jupiter squaring the Neptune here and the sun moon illuminating it is bringing us to, or not bringing us to, but reflecting to us on one level the erosion and the eroding and the decaying of cosmological truths that no longer represent the truth for us individually and then eventually collectively. But it also represents to us where we're able to tap into a deeper layer of intuitiveness that is outside the idea of mind, okay? Outside the idea of something that's deeply left brain orientated, but has more of a feminine expression to it. And I love the symmetry of the astrology at the moment. I mean, this is really where my passion shines in terms of the work that I love to share with you guys, is that every time I get to look at an astrology chart, I see the symmetry. So, and I want to share that with you today. Let's look at the the left brain function, or the archetypal expression of what Mercury represents to us. So Mercury, within the context of this conversation, is the ability to extract information from the phenomena of reality, and then through extracting that, form, definition, and word play, so that we can, through that, in essence, conceptualize forms and shapes and geometry, light shapes. Okay, so let me be super practical. What we plant in the soul of contemplation, we shall reap in the harvest of action. Mercury is the function of me being able to read that to you, right? But in essence, those words are pointing to a deeper intuitive understanding of what they represent. So this Mercury function over here, okay, right? So there's Mercury, it's in Pisces, so we know that Mercury is ruled by Neptune, as in Neptune is the planetary ruler of Pisces. So Mercury being in Pisces, okay, at the 29-degree mark, so we already can see this completion and resolve. You can see that it is in the same, it's in Pisces, so it's adding extra emphasis to this process of completion. So it's sitting in this dynamic here. And to make things even more cooler, when Mercury goes retrograde, when the function of Mercury goes retrograde, the process of Mercury involutes in itself. In other words, it turns inward and it points to Jupiter. And what it's actually saying is, again, from a more practical perspective, it's saying that the left brain function of gathering new information as a function of exploration and inquisitiveness and gathering of words and so on and so forth switches, and it says, I can no longer take in anything anymore, because I need to go and reflect on the nature of what I've taken in over the last 3 months. Why is 3 months? Because it has specifically correlated between the last time that Mercury was retrograde and when it's going retrograde again. So in that time span, it's gathering stuff. It's bringing messages from the outer planets and the inner planets, and it's all intertwining. You know, Mercury rules the nervous system with Uranus, and it speaks to the way that the nerves have information traveling from the brain all the way to the rest of the body. It goes on a break. It's like, hi guys, I'm going on holiday. So as Mercury goes on holiday, it points to the intuitiveness of deep internal contemplation around what the last 3 months have been like, and what signals and experiences I have digested and processed, and then eventually through that process awoken to. So you can see here with this retrograde function of Mercury and pointing to Jupiter, and then Jupiter pointing to the square where the sun and the moon are, it's very apparent that within this closing cycle of Chiron moving into a new sign and Uranus moving into a new sign, that we're essentially going to spend the next 3 weeks during this Mercury retrograde reflecting on anything and everything that has occurred, you know, that has taken place for us at a more personal level. So something that's very personal, something that's happened to you over the last 3 months, but really at a deeper level, we're seeking to look and observe of Uranus's transit through Aries over the last 7 years, and Chiron's transit through Pisces, and we're understanding the totality of this whole entire cycle and what it has represented to us and what it has meant for us. And the only way for you to truly know what that is that you have to go into the state of contemplation. You have to go, you don't actually have to go and sit on a mountain range, although that person's this place that he's at, you can see the vastness of Earth in front of him over there. And that's that ego interfacing with the vastness of the universe, going, wow, I'm not going to just jump off this cliff over here. This is a huge place. I feel overwhelmed. But really what it's pointing to is a returning back to your roots, a returning back to your essence, a returning back to the very thing that was the origins of your own source. And as we kind of return back to that place, as we kind of take back the next three, or look at the next 3 weeks, and we return to an inner state of contemplation, an inner state of stillness and silence, and we just feel into the last 7 years and what they have meant for us, and how the changes within ourselves have occurred, we will begin to, through that process, have the intuitive side just bring up deep insights, deep insights that we want to bring with us as we move into the future. So this is what Jen was talking to me about when she was sharing with me her insights of this new moon. She was referring to this need of contemplation during this period of time as how we, and this is so beautiful when you begin to understand Saturn and Uranus's relationship together, and not in this chart, but in the nature of the human experience, that life is understood backwards but lived forwards. Okay, life is understood backwards, Saturn. We can only understand life through the nature of reflection, Saturn. Where is Saturn? In Capricorn. What is Capricorn? Reflection, right? So we are in a state of reflection, and look at the nature of the South Node as it conjuncts Pluto there, right? It's approaching Pluto. The South Node, representing events that have been crystallized in the past, are now approaching the planetary archetype that is essentially going to eliminate everything that no longer works for us within this evolving paradigm of human understanding. And with Saturn in Capricorn, again, Saturn also closing cycle. We're in this deep internal closing cycle of things, while simultaneously receiving imprints and memory, or not imprints, but impulses that are pushing us forward. So the teaching that Jen was sharing was this: contemplation leads us to clearing out the space within us that no longer is necessary or needed, or that has the density, clearing out the density, clearing out the pre-existing frameworks that have once validated your existence and validated your life, clearing out the vessel. And as the clearing out occurs, when this, Mercury goes direct, that the space within yourself, the space within your energetic field, the space within your mind, and so on, is available to soak up the new impulses of the new cycle. And it's in that process we can welcome evolutionary shifts, we can welcome evolutionary changes. Yeah? So it's really, really beautiful to see how this shifting energy is, at this moment in time, pointing to an inner reflection that, through the inner reflection, will show us eroding beliefs and meanings and spirits that no longer represent something to us. And as we kind of surrender them and give them back to the ocean, give them back to the soil, we hold space within ourselves to embrace a completely new energetic field that is the next step. So we understand life from the past, but we live it forward. And so the living forward part is the Uranian dynamic of embracing the changes that are occurring with Chiron ingressing into Aries and Uranus ingressing into Taurus. So let's look at these little red marks that I've put on the chart over here as well. And this was actually suggested to me from one of my good friends, where he pointed out that Mercury, which there you can see 29 degrees Pisces, is actually stationing. In other words, it's literally turning retrograde on its own north node. Okay, so Chiron, I'm thinking about Chiron Latia, but so here's Mercury stationing on its own north node. So yes, every single planet apart from the sun has its own nodal axis. And what that points to, when we're looking at the nodes of a planet, we're getting understanding of the trajectory, the evolutionary trajectory of that planet. So to have Mercury land on its own north node during this new moon and stationary retrograde on it just intensifies the storyline of completion, again 29 degrees, and also sitting in Pisces over here, but also pointing to that this cycle, you can see here that we're about to approach a Pluto conjunct its south node. That's going to be happening on the 4th of April. You realize that, guys? So it's just under like 28 days, right? That Pluto will conjunct its own north node, a south node, exactly. So we're approaching a completion cycle, and we're also approaching this new evolutionary intention that is going to speak to Uranus in Taurus and Chiron through Aries. It's very apparent here that we're in a complete closing chapter, and we're summarizing, right? And like I used to teach my students with Pisces, was that Pisces, if you want to connect to the essence of it, is I'm sure everyone has read a book, and right at the end of the book, you don't have the same feeling when you start a book that you have when you end the book, right? You're not like I'm going to discover what the book is. No, you're in a state of reflection and contemplation about what that means for you. But you also don't carry the book with you all the time. And then when you want to reference what you felt about it, pull it out of a backpack that sits in your, and then go, hey, by the way, it's kind of sits somewhere in this etheric field, this knowing of what you've held that the book represented to you, right? So if you're sharing it, it just comes out of some intuitive place. So the same thing's happening here, that we're contemplating and observing the changes that are taking place for us right now. And then we're bringing with us the experiences of the past, and then we're preparing for the change of season, the change of planetary archetypal structures. So Mercury is pointing to that completion cycle at the moment in time, the north node there. And then the other thing, which again is beautifully illustrated in the chart, although you can't actually see it, but I've highlighted it with a red point, is there you see right here with Gemini there, third house, the planetary node of Jupiter. So the north node of Jupiter ingresses into Gemini during this period of time as well. So it just points to an extra validation of Mercurial Jupiter themes, where we're rewriting the script, we're rewriting the intuitive script, we're rewriting the mental scripts. And in order for us to rewrite a script, we need to recognize the importance of how the scripts influence and dictate and guide the direction of how we see reality. So in essence, we're actually dissolving a pre-existing reality that no longer supports us anymore, changing lanes, getting out with everything that is no longer of the new, and then in a sense just preparing for the new cycle. Right? This is what this energy is about completely. Okay, so I really hope that you guys found something valuable in this conversation today. I know I definitely did. I'd like to just point out a couple of things. I will be doing a free Uranus and Taurus live stream / teaching probably next week sometime. So I'll advertise that so that you guys can join that live stream production. I'm really excited to be doing something like that. Jen's going to be at some point starting to do human design videos, which I'm excited about, and I'm hoping that those of you that are into human design will find value in that as well. And if you're if you're at a point in your life where you're wanting astrology readings, or if you want to consult us in the work that we do, our website is in the description as well as in the comments below. So whenever you're ready and you want to understand your chart at a deeper level, we offer that service, and we love to do this work. It is our passion. What else is there to announce that I think is something that's good? We'll be sending out a newsletter to everyone today, just our written expression of the new moon. And if we don't have your email address, you can sign up for our newsletter, and I'll put a link in our description as well. And finally, for those of you that want to study astrology, we have a fully self-study online course from beginners all the way to advanced, beautifully created, videos that you have available to and access to all the time whenever you need it. And there's a student group as well. And you can check out and inquire about that via our link as well. That will be in the description, okay? So thanks very much, everybody. Have an awesome day, and I'll speak to you in another video. Take care. Bye-bye.